And the UN General Assembly is happening this week in New York. What are we seeing in terms of developments related to the Middle East?
The biggest thing is push by some European countries and Saudi Arabia to recognize a state of Palestine. It's a symbolic recognition. It probably won't mean much on the ground, certainly for people in Gaza and parts of the West Bank. But it's a sign that shows that Israel and the United States is increasingly isolated in not declaring its support for a pathway, at least, to a two-state solution. Second thing, President Trump spoke yesterday, garnered a lot of headlines, but I think the real story wasn't what he said. It's what he's been doing with U.S. funding for the United Nations over the first 8 months of his term. And we're at a much different moment for U.S. support for international organizations and multilateralism.
With all the developments in Israel, Gaza, and in Iran, Syria has kind of fallen out of the news recently. What's going on there, and how is that transition going?
There's a steady but very tenuous transition from the Assad regime, which was thrown out of power by rebel groups in December. There's an effort to try to make a more inclusive government headed by Ahmed Ashara. He has a background that some are suspect of. He had ties to extremist terrorist groups. There have been episodes where the current ruling authorities have gone after certain minority groups like Alawites and Druze. But by and large, there's an effort to move beyond the authoritarianism of the Assad regime, as well as more than a dozen years of civil war.
And what would you like to see the U.S. administration do in Syria to help further a peaceful transition?
Well, I think it's taken steps in the right direction to try to lift sanctions on Syria. So that enables countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and others to invest, because that's one of the most important things that the Syrian people need is an economic agenda and prosperity. Secondly, I hope that the administration does not too rashly pull out U.S. troops that still are in the northeast part of the country, because there's still a chronic problem of the Islamic State and terrorism there.
And finally, why should people in Northeast Ohio and in Cleveland care about what's happening in the Middle East?
Well, first, if you fill up your tank at your gas pump, anytime there's turmoil in the Middle East, that gets more expensive. Second, a lot of us have attachments to the Holy Land, whether we're Jewish, Muslim, or Christian. Some have connections with family that are there. But then I think the key thing, and I'll talk about this in the talk, is that the Middle East has become this geostrategic and geoeconomic arena of competition. It's a place where there's more investments in artificial intelligence and high tech, and a lot going on there. And our competition with countries like China are actually taking place in parts of the Middle East. So instead of pivoting to Asia, like some people talked about a decade or so ago, a lot of countries, including the United States, are looking to this region for trying to develop new economic models.